It truly was an honor for me to have been invited to speak by my dear friend Blue Cotton at the Roosters Club Foundation meeting. This is a group of people who are making the world a better place. What an honor for me to have spent some special moments with these truly admirable people. I'm going to talk a little bit about an event that Blue and I combined to do in Rosarito Beach with Flynn Robinson, who played for the Los Angeles Lakers at one time, won a world championship with them. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my time living in China recently. I spent 3 years in China, lived in Costa Rica, lived in Mexico for a couple of years also. But this group here impresses me as such a great group, a bunch of people from diverse backgrounds who are accomplished. Nobody's running around here acting like they're Mother Teresa, who I met in 1980 in the dumps of Mexico City. That was at a religious event for me. There's only one other religious event that really surpassed that. That's when the Fighting Irish kicked the hell out of USC. And then, that was right up there with Mother Teresa. But I did meet her in the dumps of Mexico City. I was working with the Sisters of Charity, Madres de la Caridad. I can tell you all about that also. But I'll start with the podcast. I don't want to see anybody's heads in the Caesar salad, so I'm not going to go into a dissertation on how to catch blue perch from the pier. I think I would lose all of you. So I'll start with the podcast and what really put us on the map. I had come back from China right as COVID was happening. I didn't come back for that reason. I came back to see my kids and see my wife again, who was ready to kill me. And I came back. COVID started to get worse. And I decided to stay, and then it just, there was lockdown in China and everything else. So I had started a school there. I was teaching in a school. I was doing after-school stuff. I was really having a great time traveling throughout Southeast Asia to all the adjacent countries, just having a really great time. So I came back and I said, well, I'm not going to just sit around, I'll do a podcast. And previously, I had done a lot of work in fishing. So I'll go back to my base and then perhaps expand into travel, especially Mexico. I love Mexico a lot. I'll be down there Tuesday. And so we started a podcast. And, we're getting 100 views or, 200 views. And it's building slowly but surely. And then a captain named Mark Paisano comes on the show. And I just asked him toward the end of his podcast, you ever rescue anybody? And he said, oh, numerous. We got these guys in a panga who were out of water, almost dead off of Mexico, and we rescued blah, 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 blah. But the one thing I really remember, Mark said, was this little girl who we found drifting at sea. Her name was Desiree Rodriguez. I have no idea whatever happened to her, but we were coming back on a boat called the First String, and we looked over with the binoculars. We saw the bow of a boat sticking out of the water. We went over there, and she had been in the water for 24 hours. And how hypothermia didn't take her life is an amazing thing. So, okay, cool story, really cool. I get a phone call from a guy that I fished with maybe 10 years ago. Hadn't seen him ever since. And he goes, I know the girl. I know that girl. I go, come on. And he goes, do you want to talk to her? I go, do I want to talk to her? Yeah. So I get Desiree Rodriguez on the phone, and this is the girl. 35 years later now. So this goofy little podcast about blue perch and, things that are getting hundreds of views, all of a sudden in my head is like, whoa, this is a good story. Desiree, can you come to the studio? I'm going to tell Mark and Paul that you're a translator for Telemundo. We'll get this into the Spanish press. You're going to play the part. Actually, I didn't tell her that until she arrived. I made my oldest son, I go out there and tell her this is what we're doing. He goes, I'm not doing that, Dad. I go out there and tell her I'm trying to keep everything under control. And here with these two guys, I don't want them to catch on. So he comes back, hey, we're in. So she comes in, and I just start the podcast. And I said, why don't you tell you guys tell her what happened that day. So they go through the whole thing. They found her mother with a rope wrapped around her, dead. Her aunt died. Her little sister died. Her father came down on the way back from Catalina and said, everybody off the boat, we're sinking. And he jumped overboard and tried to swim. He was just trying to do anything he could at that point. So he tried to swim to land, but they were about 8 miles into the channel, so he perished. And it was left, Desiree was the last one. And they found her, and you talk about an emotional moment. At one point during the podcast, I looked at the two captains and I said, this is not a translator. And one guy just slammed, he knew it was up. And these two macho captains just broke into tears. It was such an emotional moment. And it got captured by, we were on the CBS Evening News. Our Dopey Little Fishing podcast was all over the place. You know, we were in all kinds of magazines and there were follow-up interviews and everything else. So if you do get a chance, I think, you know, it's a human interest thing. It's not a fishing thing. It's a human interest thing. And I think you would thoroughly enjoy it. And that's what propelled us into where we are now. So most of what we do, as Blue said, we do fishing. I do something called the morning briefing every morning. Try to have it up by 8. I'm down on the beach at daybreak, blah, blah, blah. People think I'm nuts down there every morning, but I'm down there doing that. And then we have live shows. We have all kinds of other shows. I've already done 2 shows today. You know, it's a constant battle for content. So we're always doing that. All right. My parents kicked me out of the house pretty much when I was 19 and said, you're going to Costa Rica with Father Ignatius. I'm like, where's Costa Rica? And they go, you're going to figure it out. Go. So I went, taught down there. Wonderful time. A priest down there told me, I go, Father, you know, I'm really enjoying this. He goes, I'm going to tell you something, kid. These people are going to give you way more than you're going to give them. You'll find that out in time. Boy, was he right. I mean, I donated a lot of time, but what I got back, I speak Spanish, you know, living proof that anyone can learn a foreign language. My Spanish teacher in high school was so amazed. She's like, you learned Spanish? What happened? And so living proof. So I was living there in Costa Rica, working with the Franciscan fathers. I followed that same priest over to an Indian village in Mexico called Tlaxcala in the state of Guerrero. And that was a great time because when I started to teach there, I said to the kids, hey, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and we'll start our English classes and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, with this blank look on their face. And I'm like, 10 a.m., can we do that? Well, they didn't have clocks there. So they tried to teach me how to point at the sun, actually, to indicate what time class was. So I was always like, you know, kids were showing up at midnight all the time. I had it all backwards. So that was another remarkable experience. Part of what I think you all know very, very well, because you're part of this club, is you're seeking some kind of fulfillment in life. You're seeking a passion. You're seeking more than what your job gives you. Maybe gives you great monetary security and everything else, but you want to give back. And I also don't have to tell you that it's not hard to do. Because when people start treating me like a saint or something like that, I'm like, wait, no. I like doing this. I enjoy this. I feel useful in the world. So I'll go to the event that Blue and I did. We got 100 orphans, at least that was the plan. And we were going to do a 3-ring circus at the Rosarita Beach Hotel. We were going to do a fishing kind of thing on the pier. We were going to do a sports kind of thing with my kids doing football and everything else. And then we had the food thing going on. Well, somehow the 100 orphans in the 3-ring circus became 300 orphans, and we had way more kids. And there was a mad dash to go to Smart and Final and get more hot dogs. The owner of the Rosarita Beach Hotel, Hugo Torres, good friend of mine, he's getting up there in age, but he was out there barbecuing and feeding kids. We had a remarkable time. It was so great to see a world champion like Flynn Robinson, who was a wonderful man. See him out there tutoring kids, see him out there teaching kids how to play basketball. It was a beautiful thing. I'll never forget the little girl who said to Flynn said, how old are you? And she said, 15, 15, right? And he goes, why can't you say? And he goes, how old are you? And she goes, 15. I don't understand. Why can't? Oh my God! I had to let that go on for at least 10 minutes before I broke it. It was so cute, so precious, and Flynn was just a marvelous guy. But Blue can tell you that is a moment in time that I will never ever forget. It was a remarkable, remarkable time. So now in Mexico, what we're doing with Friedman Adventures, I've created a whole nother monster that I didn't mean. But on our podcast, I said, you got any clothing out there, or if you have any footballs or sporting, bring them on by the we had to get a warehouse. We got so much
that we got a warehouse. And most recently, a hurricane came up the peninsula pretty far, the Baja Peninsula, and it ended up over an island about 400 miles down called Cedros, and devastated that community, little fishing community. They also have a salt mine there. And so we sent down literally thousands of pieces of clothing, of sporting stuff, and took care of that whole community down there. I worked with a guy named Diego Nuno, who is a deckhand on the Royal Star, which is a big sport fishing operation out of San Diego, and we got all that down there. We are continuing to do that. In fact, Tuesday, every time I go across the border, I take a car full. And so we take a lot of stuff. I'll be taking some stuff down there again on Tuesday, trying to keep that going on. But as I say, you guys know very, very well that you never, when you're doing a charity event, say to yourself, oh man, I got to do this crummy. It's something that becomes part of your life. It becomes really important to you. So important, and it is to me. And once again, I absolutely love doing that kind of stuff. Recently, we were in El Zorillo, which is just a little bit south of Ensenada. I went down, whole truck full of stuff. I said, what are we doing, Diego? Where are we going to take this? He goes, oh, there's a real poor community, El Zorillo, where they have an old people's home. And a guy who owns a hotel in Ensenada, Jean-Loup is his name. He's a Frenchman who owns the El Rey Sol Hotel, which the restaurant there is the oldest French restaurant in the Republic of Mexico, which I thought maybe it would be Mexico City, but since the French got kind of booted out of there, they probably got rid of the French restaurants for a while. So we went, and he had told me, you do a lot of work with the orphanages. Nobody visits them, nobody gives them anything. They're just forgotten. Oh, that was a great experience. Taking them clothing, they're really nice people. We got to sit and talk to them. And then we basically drove around. That looks like a really poor house. We'd walk up and I'd say, hey, do you need any clothing? Is there anything we can help you with? And just handed stuff out. We had some funds to give out. We gave to a mom and her 3 kids some funds to do whatever she wanted with it. So that was another thing. In terms of the future in what we're going to do in Mexico, I'm toying with doing some English teaching down there again, maybe a day or 2 a week. I don't know how we would organize that, but I would love to do that, because sometimes when you're giving out clothing and stuff like that, it's a Band-Aid. But if you teach a kid English, that is something that can help them make more money. The minimum wage down there is in a tourist area now is $10 a day. $10 a day. So there's a young man named Brian who works at the San Nicolas Hotel. Couldn't find a nicer kid. Couldn't find a more polite kid. Works his tail off. You can see that all the time. And he's making $10 a day, So when you give him a tip, and I tip 50% mostly, if it's a 20, because it means a lot to people. And speaking English is a huge key to their success. And, in China, I saw that firsthand. Those kids in China, oh my God, our education system, we're in so much trouble. Those kids are working so hard all day long. They have an insatiable desire to learn English and everything else. They do math problems that looks like hieroglyphics to me. I have no idea what they're doing. And then after they're done studying for 8 hours, they go immediately to an after-school program. They're studying more, or they're playing the violin or something like that. So, yeah, they're focused. And one thing that came in very handy there was my ability to speak Spanish, because a lot of the Chinese are doing business in Latin America, Mexico, so they all wanted to learn Spanish, and I was so amazed. I give those kids 1 week of Spanish, and then they are walking up to me, ¿Cómo estás, maestro? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys are really smart, really dedicated. Parents there, pretty harsh, let me tell you. They really let the kids have it. There was a Chinese teacher who pulled a parent in, and they were going at it in the back. And apparently the kid had insulted her, and the kid was he was that kind of a kid. He was a little bit unruly. So the guy leaves, and she stands up and she goes, he tried to give me $2,000 to, forgive him. And I said, whoa, 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 that kid called me fat the other day. I'll take the $2,000. What are you talking about? He goes, no, we're not going to do that. I'll take that. That'll make everything good as far as I'm concerned. So that in China was great. And understanding a little bit more about a communist government, top-down, totalitarian kind of regime, living in that was very interesting to me. And just another reason why people should travel. Because you don't know how good you have it here in the USA till you get out and start traveling around. And people tell me I have the heart of a Mexican because I love Mexico so much. My wife is from Costa Rica. She wishes my heart was Costa Rican, by the way. She is always on me about that. But, I'm from the United States. I feel like when we help people in Mexico, that's being a good American. That's what being an American is all about, being generous and kind and reaching your hand across the border. So that always has made me strive ahead to try to do those things. My mom, I can remember saying, you've got your frickin' United States jersey on when you're traveling, so treat people decently. Don't be an ugly American, that book that was very famous during JFK time. So I try to keep that in mind all the time. Also, we did an event down in Cabo San Lucas, I think it's about 2 years ago. Mexican government builds this beautiful skateboard park in this very impoverished area. Beautiful. I mean, they got all the nobody could afford a skateboard. So it's just like empty. And a woman who lived down there contacted me and goes, how many skateboards can you get? And I go, let's find out. So we got about 200 skateboards donated and a ton of clothing. We shipped that all down to Cabo San Lucas, and we went down there one day and distributed it. And that was another really magical time. So, I've managed to travel around the world quite a bit, met Mother Teresa, which was a great thing, met so many great people. I met this priest in Costa Rica, I'll never forget this, and he picked up this gig to make a little side hustle he was doing. He would take his rosary and go out and use it as a divining rod to find underwater wells. And he told me, yeah, this is really, I go, really? And older guy, gringo. And he would take it out, and when the rosary started to go like this, there would be water. He said, I'm 100% accurate with that. And I go, oh, okay, Father. He was the same guy that took me out the first day I was there and go, we're going to have a Cuba Libre, Felipe. And I go, okay, Father. And he would sit there and smoke his cigarettes and then throw it, and these giant frogs would eat it and spit it out. He'd laugh and say, they think they're fireflies. This is too much. Anyway, Father Eustaquio was his name. He was a great guy. He gave me the rosary. I held it. It didn't do anything. He grabbed my wrist, and the freaking rosary was, I don't know, I still think it was some kind of a trick or something. The rosary started going zzz, and I go, whoa, Father, you definitely have something going on there, Can you help me pick a horse tomorrow at Aqueduct? Forget this underwater stuff. I want a horse at Aqueduct. So I've had an amazing amount of experiences. I've been very, very blessed. When I go to Mexico here on Tuesday, we'll be doing some fishing. We'll be handing some clothes out. I'll be enjoying myself as all of you. And the world needs more people like you. People who are accomplished, people who are giving back, people that are not like Mother Teresa. And I mean that in the sense that you think you're holier than thou. We're not. We're just trying to do the right thing and enjoying the ride as we go. So thank you very much, and I would be happy to answer any questions at all if you had a question or two. Yes, sir.
Do you happen to know Vicente Guerrero, the city?
Yeah.
Do you know of an orphanage there called a Foundation for His Ministry?
No.
I'll talk to you after about it.
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah. I went out to an orphanage. I was in Tijuana, and I'll give you an example. I was going to go to an orphanage, and I was in the hotel Plaza Azteca. A friend of mine is the general manager. And I go, hey, where is this? I'm going to drive out to this orphanage. He goes, oh, wow, that's 45 minutes from here. I go, I thought it would be like, I'm in downtown TJ. What are you talking about? He goes, yeah, hey, be careful out there. He goes, you don't want to get out of your car and talk to whoever there. You want to go into a gas station or a liquor store. So I get out there and totally lost. I get lost here. And I'm lost, and I'm just sitting there, and there's a woman selling tacos. And I'm looking at this woman sitting there, I go, there's no way that woman is not a decent person. Screw it. So I go out and I go, hey, Senora, do you know where blah, blah, blah? And she goes, oh, I've heard of that orphanage. Hang on a second. So she makes a phone call. She goes, my girlfriend is coming. She can take you there. And I go, little red flag, but I'm still looking at her, and I'm going, this is a decent person. So the girlfriend shows up, and I go, you ready? She goes, yeah. Turn left, turn right, turn around. You know, I'm going, oh, here we go into the cartel here, right? And turn right, and there it is, right there. And then it was the orphanage. And I go, okay, great, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hand her 20 bucks. She goes, are you coming here to teach English or something like that? And I go, I'm toying with that idea. She goes, I don't want the money. And I looked at her shoes and the way she was dressed. She was very poor. Promise me you'll teach me English if you come back. And I said, absolutely, yeah, that would be, an honor for me to do that. So it's funny, I was set up for, I was going to get shot or my head cut off with a machete, and I ran into these really wonderful people. And then at the orphanage itself, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. Really, really loved it.